because my family has been a little bit sick. I haven't been sick, but like everyone else has, and that has been really hard, especially my little tiny baby, not my little boy, but like my little girl. She's just been sick, and it has been really hard. She was even on oxygen, and that was pretty hard to see. However, my grandmother always says, "This too shall pass." I mean, she's passed now, but you know, when she was alive, that's something she would always say, "This too shall pass." And I think when you have a little bit of life behind you, you realize that that's pretty darn true. I found it hard when my little daughter was on oxygen, but I remember when I was on oxygen a lot of years ago, 20 years ago, when I was first paralyzed, and it was very challenging. Like, I was in the respiratory ICU for months. It seemed like kind of an excessive trial. Like, I thought being paralyzed was kind of a big deal, and I thought that, you know, not having the use of my legs and not having the use of my hands, I thought all of that was a pretty big deal. But then here I was in the respiratory ICU for a long time, like months that I was there. And everybody who came to see me, I would ask them to pray that I would get out of the respiratory ICU. Just to paint a picture, I mean, not like paint a picture, but to paint a picture of the respiratory ICU, I had tubes everywhere. I had tubes in my arms that watered me. I had tubes in my upper arms for medications. I had tubes coming out of each one of my lungs that was draining the fluid that my lungs were filling with. I had probably the worst tube of all was this tube that went, or maybe the best tube of all, because it was keeping me alive, I don't know. But I was on a ventilation machine. And since COVID now, everybody kind of knows what being ventilated means, but that was me. I was on a ventilation machine, and it was breathing for me. It was pushing air in, and then it was sucking it back out again, and it was kind of a big deal. I had fallen pretty far and had broken a lot of bones, so the doctors were pretty sure that I had brain damage, you know, which I don't, but to stop me from pulling out the tubes that were everywhere, they tied my arms to the bed. So that's just a picture of what it was like in the respiratory ICU. I know I described shock trauma in a couple videos ago, and it was pretty similar, but the respiratory ICU, I was there for months. I was not unconscious in any way. I was not like out of it or anything. I was completely with it, and I was completely wishing I wasn't with it. Like, it was so hard. And I had this tube, the ventilation tube, it went into my mouth and it down my throat, and it branched out my lungs, and it breathed for me. It pushed air in and then it sucked it back out, and it was very challenging. I remember I went for a walk, those are air quotes, a walk with my cool nurse that I really liked, and then one of the respiratory therapists, who's a respiratory therapist, who's supposed to keep your, you know, respiration like going. And we went for a walk, and my nurse that was really cool was a boy, a single boy, and the respiratory therapist nurse was a girl, probably a single girl. And as I was laying there on this gurney that they were walking around the hospital, my nurse just wanted me to get outside and get some like fresh air, or not fresh air because I was breathing, you know, on a ventilation machine, but, you know, feel it on my skin and see outside, see, you know, it was springtime. I am hungry now for spring because I missed that spring when I was in the hospital. But anyway, so that's what he wanted from me. And so the respiratory therapist came along, and she was breathing for me with this like pump. Like, she would pump it. I mean, that's what she was doing. That was her job. And she would forget her job. Like, she would forget. And so I would be like, and she was just like talking away with this male nurse, you know, and he was like, it's time for her to breathe again, you know, and she was like, oh, and she would push it again. It was crazy. It's crazy to have to rely on someone for something so basic. I hated it very much. It was just pretty hard. I didn't love it. Like, I didn't love it. I am very grateful for the time that I had in the respiratory ICU because of what I learned there. And I probably learned the best lesson, the best life lesson that I've ever learned was in the respiratory ICU. And my painting is crying because I don't want to tell this story because it's a sad story. Actually, it's a happy story. I should be happy about telling it because it's a super happy story. But it was a really sad time in my life. You know, I was thinking about what I was gonna say today, and I was, you know, kind of going through it in my mind, and even now, 20 years later, like, that has got to be the hardest, darkest time of my life, was being in the respiratory ICU, because I didn't know why I had to be there. I didn't know why I was having this like extra crazy trial. You know, I just didn't know why, and I didn't understand, and I didn't want to be there. Who wants to be there? Nobody. And it was just so awful. It was just so awful. But I'm very grateful that I was there. I'm very grateful for what I learned. What I learned was how to get through really dark times in your life when you really don't have much to go on. When I was in that respiratory ICU, hooked up to the ventilation machine, all those tubes everywhere, my arms tied to the bed because the doctors thought I had brain damage. They didn't want me to pull anything out. My mom swears I was never alone. And I believe her, you know, I believe her, except I woke up this one time and there was nobody in my hospital room. And I started to cry. And, you know, it's not how you want it to be. That's not anything about life that you want. Like, you never really want to be alone, even if you kind of want to be alone. But I started to cry. And I thought, I just can't start my day like this. You know, I really just can't start my day like this. If I start my day like this, like, I don't know how I'm going to fix it. Like, it's only going to get worse. And so out of desperation for something to do, I like opened my eyes really wide, and I'm laying flat on my back on the hospital bed, and I'm looking straight at the ceiling. And in my heart, I say, bless me with love for that ceiling. And I feel a little bit better. And then I look out the window and I say, and bless me with love for that window and that car and that empty visitor's chair and the light switch and the TV and this bed and these blankets and these tubes. And I prayed for love for everything that I saw. And by the time I had prayed for love for everything that I saw, I was crying again. Only I was crying because I was so happy. I had gone from being so sad to the point of tears to being so happy to the point of tears simply by loving everything that was around me. There is a quadriplegic higher than me, which means he has less function than I do, who said, attitude makes all the difference, but gratitude brings me joy. There's that one country singer, you know, she says, it's not having what you want, it's wanting what you got. 100%, 100%, 100%, it's exactly that. If you are grateful for what you have, then suddenly, you know, inexplicably, mysteriously, you have everything that you need. You have everything that you want. You have everything that you will ever want if you are grateful for the things that you have. I'm gonna dance now. I'm gonna paint this picture. I love to dance, but now I'm a painter. Now I'm a painter, dang it. And you're painting with me. And it's gonna be an awesome painting because this feels, I mean, I know it doesn't look anything like dancing, but it feels a whole lot like dancing. It feels awesome. So me and this canvas are gonna have a little one-on-one time. I'll see you on the other side. painted a giraffe for you, actually mostly for me. Let's call this giraffe happy, shall we? This giraffe has been through a lot of colors make up this giraffe, but she is still very, very happy, and she's happy not because she's lived a happy life, but because she has learned how to be happy in the face of maybe really dark and happy times, and that, I think, is the real name of the game. So it's important to recognize what we have and what's going on that's good, and to point out the good things. You know, you got those two wolves inside you, one telling you you can't do it, everything's awful, and the other telling you you can do it, everything's amazing. And which one's gonna win? Well, it's the one you feed. So let's feed that grateful wolf so that we can be happy, not because of anything that happened to us, but rather in spite of it, right? Right. All right, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time for a wonderful therapeutic dancing session with the paint.